Greetings and salutations. I hope this video finds you doing well. Today we're going to have some fun. We're going to take a look at a new version of Linux Mint Debian Edition. This is Linux Mint Debian Edition 6, codenamed Faye. I have been waiting for this release, and so has my friend John Spoonamore. Thank you, John, for keeping me all up to date on the development. He's the one who let me know that this was finally available for download. The beta came out a couple of weeks ago, and I knew about that. I almost downloaded that and did this video with that, but I thought, no, I'm going to wait until the final release, and we'll take a look at it then. So, we are on the Linux Mint main page right now. And if you go to download, this is linuxmint.com, and if you go to download here, you'll see other versions. What we're interested in today is LMDE 6. And we'll talk about the main differences between LMDE 6 and regular Linux Mint. Of course, they have a little paragraph here where they talk about it. Basically, Linux Mint looks at this as a development platform. They want to have a version that is not based on Ubuntu, so that if anything happens to Ubuntu, or if Ubuntu becomes unusable as a base in their opinion, they can always fall back on this. And there are those in the community that wish that Linux Mint would stop developing on Ubuntu and just switch over to Debian full time, but they're not quite ready to do that. So Debian Edition has been around for quite some time. We're into version 6, and it's just gotten better and better and better. And if you already know how to use Debian and you're familiar with it and you like that distribution, this is just Debian with buttons. It does give you a very different environment, though. So let's take a look at some of the things here. Let's take a look at the release notes, which I think is kind of important. So what's in here? We have a new LMDE installer. I think this is you can run the installer in expert mode, run the following command. We're going to use the simple one. How's that? It ships with a locked root account by default, which I think is a good thing. I agree with that totally. Debian wants you to create a root account at install. In other words, you give the root account a password which activates that account, and if you want to do things as root on the system, you can log in as root. That is a security risk, and Ubuntu and other distributions of Linux ship with the root account completely locked. In other words, you can't log in, and if you want to do something as root or with elevated privileges, you do it with the sudo command as yourself. And I think that's a slightly more secure way to go, and a little less confusing as well for new users. So good for you. VirtualBox guest additions are in here. To add support for shared folders, drag and drop, proper acceleration, and display resolution, click on the Devices menu of VirtualBox and include, or choose rather, Insert Guest Edition CD. We're going to do that. Thank you. That's something that you can't do on Debian. If you'll recall when I did the video where I installed Debian Bookworm without looking at any of this information, the release notes or nothing, that didn't work, and I spent a great deal of that video troubleshooting it, but it works here. DVD playback with VLC, should you need that, and then we have other issues. We're not going to get too deep into that. Username and password in a live session. We don't need to worry about that. Moving windows that don't fit in the screen. How do we do that? If the screen resolution is too low, which it will be when we boot it up in a virtual machine, some windows might not fit in the screen. Okay, while pressing the Alt key, you can grab any part of a window with the mouse and drag it across the screen. And we're not worried about a 32-bit kernel today, so there you go. Now, if we want to download this, let's go back up here and look at the download page. I just want to show you this very quick. You scroll down here and look at the different mirrors all around the world and find the one that's closest to you, and all you have to do is click on it. Or you can do like I do, because I just have to be complicated and right-click, copy the link, and then use wget to put it exactly where I want it to go in a terminal. Either way, this makes it super easy to get a hold of a version there. And they also have checksums if you want to make sure it's okay. I'm not going to get into that in the video where you can download your file and then check it to make sure that it's as it should be. But we're going to trust them. Besides, I have a file that I know works. So let's go ahead and get out of here and go to my Linux Mint desktop here. Isn't it nice? And we are going to open up the hypervisor here. VirtualBox is what we're using for our virtual environment today. And I like VirtualBox. Every time I talk about VirtualBox, people go, why don't you use QEMU? Why don't you use this other stuff? I'll tell you why. Because I like it. And it's cross-platform. That's why I like it. So we're going to be using that today. Okay. So on our virtual machine here, we need to grab a ISO file and put it in the virtual DVD there. Did I put something in? No. What am I doing here? I want to... No, I don't. I just... Choose a disk file. Thank you. LMDE 6 Cinnamon is what we've got. This is like putting a DVD in a virtual drive. And that's pretty much how you install stuff on a virtual machine. You can do USB too if you like, if you have a USB stick. But virtual machines are very basic and old school, so you see a lot of old stuff like that. So let's go ahead and start this up and get going on the install. Let's see what we get. Now it's just teeny tiny right there. Let me scale that up for you. Go to scaled mode. Okay, that made it bigger. Of course, by the time I made it bigger, it was gone. Basically, it gives you the option to open this up with... Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. Let's wait for this to boot up. Oh, the fun is already beginning. Things aren't going the way I wanted them to. That's all right. That's what makes the video interesting. This is not perfect. Okay. So, yes, the resolution is very tiny, as you can see, but I can go ahead and shut this down. Oh, it just figured out that... just changed it. Okay, let's go back over here. I'm going to shut this down. Hello? Go ahead and power that off. All right, and the disk drive is empty. We need to choose the disk file again. I'm doing all this just so you can see the opening screen and we can talk about it for the 5 seconds that it appears. All right, let's open that up again. Now you should be able to see what's going on here. Okay, we have Start Live. We have Start Live in compatibility mode, hardware detection, boot from local drive, and memory test that you can do before you install. All of that to get to this. I hope that was worth it. Okay, so you boot it up on your machine. You get a lovely live environment in which you can experiment and play with and make sure things are working. That's a Linux thing. I don't think any other operating system does that. It allows you to play with it before you actually install it. Okay, so let's give this a second to get settled in because apparently it will change its own screen resolution and choose one. All right. We are still in scaled mode, however. Let's take it out of scaled mode and see what happens. All right, we get kind of a small machine here. Let us make that bigger on our own. We can do that quite easily. Now, those of you who are looking at low-resolution devices right now, like if you're watching this on your phone, I know you can't see anything because things are going to get very small. I get it. We will remedy that as soon as possible. I will tell you what I'm doing here. I'm going to go to Settings, and we're going to look for Display in here. And no, that's not display. What did I click on? You clicked on something else. All I saw was a D. I thought it was displays. Okay, is this down here? It's in hardware, dummy. Could you go away? I don't need the welcome screen. Jeez, there's displays. All right, we need to make this bigger. And we're going to choose from the list here. Let's try 1280 by 1024. Nah, it's not going to work. Cancel. We don't want that. Okay, what do we want? All right, we'll try that one instead. That's better. Wait a minute, that's not what I want. Hold on. Do that again. I want a large 16 by 9 ratio, thank you. Let's try that one. That's better. We can make that work for sure. Okay, we'll keep that one. All right, close that up right there. And let's see if we can make our fonts just a little bit bigger and make them easier for everybody to see. So I'll go back to settings. Yeah, it's there. No, I just think I opened software. Yep, you did. Settings is what we want. Thank you. All right, font selection. We'll just make this slightly bigger. All right, we'll make it a little better to see. Okay, see, because we are not currently running any accelerated video drivers for VirtualBox. So somebody once said, well, you don't need to do that. All you have to do is set the resolution. When I was doing a video, like, yes, you do. You need to have the actual drivers to make it work properly. Okay, so we're going to install. Remember, we're using the simplified installer here. And it's asking me what language we want. We're going to say English, United States. Time zone, yes, New York. That's close enough. Keyboard, English, US. And then I will put in a name. We'll call the computer LMDE VM. And it's already chosen a username, which is fine. Put in my super secret and super safe and secure password. Yes, I do want the machine to require my password at login. Folks, don't have your machines automatically log in. If anybody ever gets a hold of it, it's just saying, that's just like you saying, here, you can have all my personal stuff. Go ahead. I don't mind. All right, so we're going to do, this is disk configuration. We could have it do it automatically. With Debian, if you do it automatically and you have it configured automatically, what's going to happen is it's going to put a great big swap space at the front of the drive. That's just how Debian rolls. You may be used to Ubuntu, for instance, that doesn't use a swap space. They create a swap file. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to use a swap file on this system, and I'm going to show you how to set that up manually because I don't want the thing to create a great big 4 gigabyte swap space in my little 40 gigabyte virtual drive. So let's go ahead and do our partitioning. It says we can do this manually. So let's do some manual partitioning. Let's go next. And it's telling me that there are already 2 on this drive. We have swap and we have one ext4 holding the system. I would assume that's ext4, right? Yep, ext4. It says it right there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and launch gparted. And what we're going to do is clear this drive off. We're just going to delete everything. And there is no EFI boot here, so we're just going to use, we'll just go ahead and make this, let's see what kind of, well, let's just go ahead and start. Let's create a partition table. Okay, so I can't, it won't let me do that. Let's go ahead and erase the drive. Right, so we did that. Close. Now we're going to create a new partition table just for fun. MS-DOS will be fine. We do not need to use GPT. This is a tiny drive. And as I said, there's no EFI. So what we want to do is create a new partition. We're going to use the entire drive. That's perfectly all right. ext4 is okay. And we could put a label on it if we wanted to do it. How about just LMDE, like so? Or you could put on OS or leave it blank or whatever you wanted to do. So we create an ext4 partition. That's what we want to do. Just one great big happy partition because it's a virtual machine. That's why. Let's go ahead and do that. And we will apply. And we'll close. All right. So we've done that. Let's refresh this so it sees the new one, and that's where we want it to be. So we're going to make the mount point, put the whole system in there. We're going to format to ext4, and we're going to move forward. That's it. That's fine. We're going to put the bootloader on SDA. It seems to be ready to go. And we're rocking down the highway. So we'll just kind of hang out and let this install. Wanted to tell you guys a little bit about Linux Mint's very early days, because I think it's kind of important as we look at this distribution of Linux Mint that is just absolutely so awesome, and it'll do anything you want it to do right out of the box. Way back a long time ago, when Ubuntu was a new thing and Linux Mint was a new thing, it was an entirely different world. Back in those days, if you downloaded Ubuntu and tried to put it on your computer, you couldn't play a YouTube video. You couldn't play an MP3 file. You kept running across all kinds of stuff that the folks at Ubuntu did not configure. Of course, these days, those things just work, and there's not much else you have to do. Linux Mint was created as a way to make Ubuntu friendlier than it already was. You see, Ubuntu is distributed by a company called Canonical. And Canonical is a for-profit corporation, which their job is to create revenue for the Ubuntu Foundation. That's how it works. And because of that, they did not want to get into any trouble with any copyright infringements or putting non-free software out with Ubuntu that might get them in trouble. So they didn't. So as a user in those days, if you installed Ubuntu, if you wanted to play a YouTube video, you had to install the Flash player because that's the way it worked then. And if you wanted to play an MP3, you'd have to go install the MP3 codecs, and you'd have to know how to do that on Ubuntu. And newbies had a hard time with that. Linux Mint is put out by a nonprofit organization. And their idea was, hey, we really don't have to worry about copyright infringement. Let's go ahead and just set everything up and ship it so that as soon as you install it, it just works. So I always called Linux Mint Ubuntu with buttons back in those days. Of course, now it has evolved into very much its own distribution of Linux. They have their own desktop that they work on. They have their own software repositories. It's much bigger now than it was, and it stopped being dependent on Ubuntu a long time ago and more developed alongside it and just using the Ubuntu software repositories. Of course, Linux Mint Debian Edition is there in case Linux Mint for some reason does not want to continue working with Ubuntu, and it works just as well. As far as I'm concerned, they have done a great deal of development through the years. Linux as a whole has just become a first-class operating system, which I use every day. And when I first started fooling around with this, way back a long time ago in the 2000s, it wasn't like that at all. You had to have Windows running somewhere so you could get stuff done, and Linux was more of a play toy. And now it's not like that at all. You don't need anything else. You can do whatever you need to do pretty much. Of course, there are still some issues with Linux with software, like if you absolutely rely on Adobe and you have to use Adobe products, you're probably going to need to use Windows or Mac, because some businesses, like where I work, I have to use Adobe. I have no choice. We are sucked into that, and we use Adobe Audition to edit audio. That's just part of our system and our setup. I can't get around it. So I have to have a Windows machine, but for most people who do not have to do that, then you could just live on Linux all the time. It's been a long time coming with a lot of development. Very cool indeed. And my Windows machine, by the way, is not my Windows machine. It's my work's Windows machine. They send it to me in a box, and I set it up. And if anything goes wrong with it, I will put it in a box and send it back and say, fix it. So I don't put any personal information on it at all. It's all just work stuff. It isn't even on my network, shared on my network. And I don't even, my Linux machines don't even share like Samba with the Windows network. Nope. If you want to move something from one machine to the other, use SneakerNet. I've got a USB stick and I plug it in the Windows machine, copy it over, and then plug it in the Linux machine. Seriously, that's how I'm doing it. So our installation seems to be going well. I do apologize to those on low resolution devices, simply because I can't really do much to make it much bigger and still be functional with the installer that they're using. But when we're done, we'll definitely fix that, so it'll get a little bit better. All right, it's done. So now we're going to reboot. And it says press enter. Okay. And just press enter. That is the splash screen that you normally get with Linux Mint Debian Edition, which I like. Ubuntu, of course, doesn't have any screen. They don't stop and give you the option to go, choose what kernel you want to run or anything like that. Nope, you've got to figure out how to do. You press Shift and hold it to get that to work. All right, let's log into our brand new Linux Mint that we just installed. Isn't this cool? There's our welcome screen. Now, let's go ahead and I think what we need to do here is, before we start playing around with the resolution, is I am going to install the proper drivers for VirtualBox, and this will make things a lot easier. So this is what they have done, which is awesome. And thank you, Linux Mint team. I love you. You know I do. I've loved you for years. It's a love affair that never ends. Sometimes it's love-hate, I know. But it's so cool. All right. So we go to Devices here on this menu up top. And what we want to do is insert the Guest Edition CD. Now watch what's going to happen. I love this. Do you see how it asks me if I want to run that? Yes, I do. Oh, it's going to ask me for a password. Now, yes, I know the resolution is small. I get it. I know that you guys watching on phones can't see. Trust me. All right, so it's currently going through right now, and it is building the proper kernel modules for the VirtualBox drivers. So we will have full support in this virtual machine for things like cut and paste from host to guest, and of course the proper video resolutions. This is what did not work at all in Debian, and this is what tripped me up in that video, if you will remember. I sat there for the longest time waiting for that to happen, and those drivers just started working, and all we have to do now is hit enter, and there we have it. We have Linux Mint. So let's see, what do we want to do here? First, let's make this so it's easier for all of us to see. And we can run it in full screen mode too, which is going to be nice. So what we're going to do is go to Settings, and we'll go to Fonts. And I'm actually going to use this machine, so I'm probably going to take a little bit more time to actually configure it. So what I want to do is I want to make that 13. Let's do that. Select. And we're going to make this 12. This is the fixed monospace font. This would be like in your terminal and your text editor. So I'm going to go ahead and make that 16. I like it very large. And then we'll make that 13. That's step one. We can also just scale things up a little bit, and I like to do a little bit of an extra scale just to make things easier to see. And let's put that in full screen mode. Ta-da! We have Linux Mint running in the virtual machine, and everything is nice and huge. So let's go look at welcome and see what they want us to do to get things started. Oh, actually, you know what I have to do first? What I have to do first is to create a swap space. Because remember, when we did manual partitioning, we have no swap on this machine at all. And this virtual machine right now is set for 4 gigabytes of memory. So we don't want to run out of memory without having a little swap. Some folks will tell you that if you have a machine that has lots and lots of memory, let's say that you have a machine with 32 gigabytes of memory or 64 or whatever, that you don't need swap space for Linux. I've had that argument with people through the years. Yes, you do, even if it's just a tiny little bit. And the reason why is because the kernel itself needs to have a place to do memory management. And also, some software wants to actually get to the swap area on its own. So if it isn't there, this could cause instability. Now, I know some people say, well, I've been running my system without it for a very long time, and I've had no problems. Well, good for you, but I like to do what the developers tell me to do. So I'm going to create some swap space on this machine. We're going to make a swap file today. We're going to actually do that. So I'll show you how that works. And let's go ahead and make this, we can make that a little bigger, actually, since we're running in full screen mode. Now, you guys on those low-res devices, don't worry about it. You didn't miss nothing major. I told you everything as we were going along. So the first thing we need to do is create a file. And we need to basically create a 2 gigabyte file and fill it with zeros. So there's nothing in it. That's super easy to do. No, you don't use the touch command. We are going to do sudo dd, because we have to do this with elevated privileges. And our input file is going to be dev0. What is dev0? Dev0 is a virtual device that is available on every Linux system that basically just spits out zeros all the time. That's what it does. Okay, so our output file is going to be swap file, and we're going to put it in the root directory. Now we have to set a block size, and that equals 1024K. There are other ways to express that. This is how I remember doing it. It's just the one stuck in my head. I think you can put 1 and a capital M and it'll be a megabyte, but we're going to do it this way just because that's how I remember doing it. Count, and we want 2 gigabytes, so we want 2048, right? So basically, the dd command is a very down and dirty and very, very old Unix command that moves data from one place to the other, and it doesn't care whether it's a file or a drive or anything. dd is very useful when working with block storage devices. That would be hard drives, spinners, SSDs, thumb drives, stuff like that. You got to be careful with DDD. DD. 2 Ds, not 3. I don't know where that came from. Okay, let's do it. So it asked me for my password. I'll put it in there. And it doesn't give you any output while it's working, so depending on how quick your machine is, you might be sitting there looking at a blinking cursor for a while. That's okay, it did what we needed to do. So we can confirm that just by doing ls and look for something called swap file. Is it in here? Yes. See our swap file? It is right here. Okay. So, what's next? We need to change the permissions on that file to make it very secure, because if anybody could get into your swap space, it is conceivable that they would be able to read any information stored in there. And we don't want them to do that. So what we're going to do is do sudo, and we're going to use change mod, M-O-D. Change mode, actually, without the E is what this is. Yep, I got it right. And we're going to change it to 0600. Now this will set the permissions so that the only user on this system that can read and write to this file is the root user, or the system itself. So that's done. Alright, next we need to tell it what file it is. That's pretty easy. We just tell it swap file. And that's it. You don't get any output. And in Linux, that always means that it worked. If you get output, that means you had an error. The reason why you don't get output when things work is so that you can write scripts and don't have to worry about where that output goes. That's the idea. Okay, so we have changed that. Now what we need to do is make that swap. So we do sudo make swap, and we use swap file again. What this does is it tells the system that this is a usable swap space. You can do this with a partition on a drive as well. Alright, it did it. You'll notice that we could mount our swap space with a UUID very easily there. We're not going to do that, but we could if we wanted to. So now we have it available to us, but the system doesn't know it's there. So how are we going to do that? Well, you mount swap at boot, so we'll need to go and edit the fstab file. Don't worry, this is super easy, okay? It's not going to get that complicated. Jeez. Alright, so let's do sudo nano, and we are going to do etc and fstab. Super. This is a basic system file that loads everything up on the system, and you can see we already have some entries here, and all we want to do is go down here and create a line. So the first thing we're going to tell it is what we're talking about. We want to just put in swap file. Okay, that will tell the system what we want to mount. Alright, above that you'll see that the drive itself is being done by a UUID. Now a UUID is a universal ID that's going to be on any partition or swap file or whatever. The system can detect this, and even if the order of the drives moves or something like that, well, then it's not going to change. Thank you, Linux Mint, for letting us know we have updates. We'll get to that in just a little while. Okay. Alright, so we have that. You can mount drives by label. You can mount them by dev calls, which, as you can see above the UUID there, it says in the notes what the dev call is for the main drive, which in this case is going to be dev SDA1. Now if I put another drive in this machine and I got it out of order, and if I had the system looking for the root file system, which is right here, and I put this in instead of that UUID, if the new drive accidentally becomes SDA1, then it won't work, which is why we use UUIDs. I hope that helps. Okay, what are we doing here? Alright, we have no mount point. So we put in none, and then we tab over. I'm tabbing between these, and the system is swap, tab, and the rules are SW. That's it. That's all we got to do. So Control O to write out. And then we are going to go ahead and close that. And we're going to reboot the system. Oh, I want to, let's go ahead and reboot the system. Reboot. Not reboot. We still got it wrong. Okay, let's go ahead and load this up. So basically FSTab doesn't do anything but tell the system where all the other file systems are. I hope I didn't get too confusing on that. Sometimes I get off talking about things and I realize I'm going down a rabbit hole. There's our welcome screen. Let's open up our terminal yet again. And we'll make that just a bit bigger. And we'll look at the welcome here in just a moment. So what do we need to do here? Well, I want to sudo apt install htop. One of my favorite programs for managing Linux systems is htop. Thank you, Hassan. I did a video about that many years ago when that was a relatively new piece of software, and actually communicated with the developer, and what a super nice guy he was. His name is Hassan, and that's why it's called htop. Alright, so if we run htop, we should be able to see if we are using swap. And we are. The system knows it's there and it's using it. So it's this line right here. So we're good to go. And we're using about 960 megabytes of memory on a fresh boot. Some people would say that's a lot, but a lot of that is desktop that's stuck into memory to make things faster. That can always be paged somewhere else into it can be taken out of memory if necessary. Besides, we got plenty, right? This machine has, I put 4096, so it's saying 3.82 gigabytes. That's fine. Alright, that worked. There's another way to do that. Why don't you show the other way to look for that? So another command that we could have used without installing htop would be free, and we want to make that humanly readable. Here we go. I don't know why I put an L there, honestly. Okay, and it will tell us what we're doing with swap. It says we have 2 gigabytes and we're not using any. And remember, we have to have a little bit of swap, so this is a cool thing. So we got that done. Pats on the back all around. We did it, right? Okay, let's look at the welcome and see what kind of things we can do with Linux Mint. So, first steps. You could choose your desktop colors. I personally don't care. I'm going to completely retheme this thing in just a few moments, and I'm going to show you how to do that because people have asked, how do you get your traditional Linux Mint desktop? Because it used to be a one-click deal in the welcome screen, and now they have decided, no, we're not going to do that. So I don't like that Linux Mint. How about giving me a button somewhere to pick a traditional desktop? Because I like it, because I'm an old fart. And I want my Linux Mint systems to look like Linux Mint 17.3. System snapshots, that is setting up time shift. We will not be setting that up on a virtual machine, although I encourage you to do that. I've talked about that in other videos. Let's go ahead and do our multimedia codecs. Just in case, for some reason, in a virtual machine, I should come across the situation where I need to play videos or, you know, okay, we go to details. It is going through and updating the cache. Of course, I really probably should have run the updates first. Do as I say, don't do as I do, okay? Usually when you install something, the very first thing you do is run the updates. But I'm kind of getting things a little out of order here. And that's probably why it's taking longer, because I haven't chosen mirrors that are faster than the default. Yep. Come on, boys and girls, let's go. Okay, there we are. Updating cache. Are we done? Yes. Asking for my password to install software. This is a good thing. If you are new to Linux, one thing you need to get used to is typing your password, because every time that you do anything to change the system, a good Linux distribution is going to ask you for that password to make sure that you approve. That way, if somebody else is playing on your computer, they're not messing up your world. Okay, let's go to launch the update manager. Oh, down here, that launch. Confusing. Okay, thank you for explaining all that up front. Let's go change the mirrors and look for faster mirrors. Doesn't that sound like fun? Okay, I clicked on that. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Is bring that up? Okay. I'll go to software sources here. Do it manually. Set our local mirrors. Alright, so the first one is set to packages at linuxmint.com. I have one in particular that I want to use. I want to use JMU. I don't care how fast it is. That's the one that is physically closest to me. Alright, now for Debian, I think I'm probably going to leave that as it is. Because, it's the fastest one for me, just about. Oh no, I'm getting a bunch of faster ones. Let's see what I got here. Now, the only reason that I wouldn't automatically pick a mirror, let's say, it's telling me that I have Lehigh right there, which is up in Pennsylvania. And then the first one is the first one at the top is MIT. That's in Boston. The only reason that I wouldn't choose one of these colleges as a main mirror for Debian is because sometimes if you have one college for like the Debian and you have one college for the Linux Mint repositories, what happens is they can get out of sync. So I'm just going to do pretty much the fastest one that is not. Let's do ftpdebian.org. How's that? By the way, you can come in here and change those anytime you like. You can always double check that to make sure you have the fastest repositories, or if you should happen to choose one that's constantly having problems. Sometimes those repositories go down, they're doing maintenance or whatever, and you happen to get on one of those that is, you're getting all kinds of errors that it can't be reached or whatever. You might want to try a new one. We're updating the cache again from the new repositories. Isn't this exciting? Aren't you so glad you clicked on this video? It's just riveting, isn't it? I'm going to tell you something. I used to really worry about all the people that say, your videos are too long, you're taking too much time, you're talking too much, you're doing whatever. Well, if you listen to those people, you will end up with very boring content. And I don't pay any attention to them. So if you're going to be doing YouTube of any kind, ignore those people. You talk for as long as you want to and talk about whatever you want. There is a guy on YouTube. I'll go ahead and refresh this real quick. There's a guy on YouTube that actually posted a video last year of him splitting wood in his shed for a half hour. And because I enjoy listening to him and I enjoy his channel, I watched the whole thing. And when I got done with it, I realized, I was like, do you realize that you just watched this guy split wood for a half hour? And I did that because it was fun to hang out with the guy. That was the thing. It felt like that it's kind of a social interaction. And I hope that's kind of what you get out of these kind of videos here, Maybe. I don't know. I don't know why anybody watches this crap. I wouldn't. Actually, I would. I want to give a shout out to Esnix, man, who used to do videos just like this, but he was like putting together old machines and installing stuff like Red Hat version 2. I mean, that was cool. I'm not that cool. All right, so we have done our updates. Now, as soon as you do updates on a Linux machine, even if it doesn't prompt you to do so, it's probably a good idea to restart, so we're going to do that right now. right, we are updated. Okay, so what do we do next? Let's go take a look at the settings here. We can go ahead and make this welcome menu go away. I don't need that anymore. Thank you. We'll go over here and we're going to jump into settings and take a look at a few things. Now, if you decide that you're going to play with this, you could probably spend all day going through this. I think the Cinnamon desktop is really cool. The GNOME desktop, for me, even the Ubuntu vanilla version of GNOME is very sparse and bare, and of course if you want to tweak it, you've got to download tools and all this other stuff. And then on the other hand, KDE for me is just overwhelming. There are so many settings and so many tweaks, and there's so much that you can do with it that it's indecisive. I think Cinnamon actually offers a nice in-between. It's a traditional desktop setup, and you can change it and do whatever you want with it, but they don't overwhelm you with settings. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, what should we look at here? Let's go to date and time. I don't want a 24-hour clock. I want a regular clock, so we'll turn that off. What else do I like to play with here? On the desktop, want to see the home folder. Let's put that up there. Yep, that's good. This we can get rid of. Let's just go ahead and we'll eject that because we've already installed that. Let's see, what else? A general is kind of interesting. There's some things in here. If you do a lot of gaming, you might want to make sure that the compositor was turned off for full screen. But if you have any screen tearing or other artifacts, you might want to try turning it on. So that's under general here. What else is in here? Miscellaneous options. We can have a timer for logging out. We can set a memory limit. That's interesting. I just leave those at defaults most of the time. Don't even fool with that. Let's see, what else do we have in here? Not much here. We'll get into some panel settings here shortly. Screensaver. It says it kicks in every 15 minutes. This is a virtual machine, so I don't need a screensaver. I don't need no screensaver. And it's a virtual machine. We don't need to lock it. See, well, I'm not even kicking it on, so it doesn't matter. We're not going to lock the computer screen. Turn all that crap off. You can set that whichever way you want. Startup applications. Crap we don't need. Well, we don't need the Mint welcome, so let's get rid of that. We will leave the, well, print queue. I might need that at some point. The rest of it I'm going to leave alone. Update manager you could get rid of if you wanted to do it manually from the terminal, but I like to do it with the update manager because it's just pointy and clicky and cool. You can also manage kernels from the update manager, so you could get rid of old kernels and all that stuff. It's very cool. Bluetooth, we're not going to worry about that. The display, that's being handled by the drivers. Everything else here seems to be good. We don't need to fool with. Power management. Let's check this out. We don't want to never on all this stuff because it's a virtual machine. We don't want to turn off the screen. But I will admit that if you have virtual machines up and running and a screensaver kicks in, to me that's really cool looking. I like that. If you like to play with VMs. But we really don't need. Let's see if I can configure my printer. I should be able to. It found my printer and it auto-configured it. Unfortunately, this won't work. So let's just do it this way. We'll go to unlock that so we can configure our printer. We go to add. And it's a network printer. Let's see if it can. I found it. We click the very first one. Now it takes a little bit for it to figure out what it's doing here, or you might need to click it twice. Or did it crash? No, it didn't crash. All right, forward. It's going to go get the proper drivers, which is basically HP lip. And it's going to go grab that. All right. And I always like to make it a little less, like it doesn't need series at the end, right? need a nickname for it. We'll just apply. Do not print a test page, and that's set up. You notice we still have this over here. This is the what it's trying to do is it's trying to automatically add the printer. Unfortunately, this never works. At least not with my printer, it doesn't. You have to go in and manually tell it what printer you want and make it the default, and then you won't have to worry about it ever again. That's the end of that. What else should we look at here? Let us turn the firewall on. That's a kind of a weird little bug that's been going on with Cinnamon for a long time, is that when you click on that, it'll try and open 3 of them. Let's open up Home. We're going to leave it as is. We could set rules for different... You have the ability to set rules for different applications if you want something to poke through the firewall, but in this case, we're not going to worry about that. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. So we are all safe and protected. We have a firewall running. Now, technically, we have a firewall in the router from the public internet, right? But you see, I like to set up firewalls on my own network. That way, if any malicious person should happen to gain access to my network, they won't be able to do anything with the machines, theoretically. They're not going to be able to see them, so they're not going to be able to get into them. So that works out pretty cool. Also, a firewall like that is very important if you are going to be doing anything on public networks at a coffee shop or hotels or planes or whatever, or trains or wherever you are in the world. Okay, I don't like this, the way this is configured down here on the panel, so let's start working on the looks of this thing a little bit. And I'll go back over to Settings, and let's go to Themes, and we're going to do... I want to do Mint X, which is a very old Linux Mint theme. And we're going to do, you could do there's a dark version, there's a light version. We're going to do mixed, because you notice we don't have a dark with, there is no dark version of Mint X, because Mint X is very old. Remember, the goal here is to try and make this look like Linux Mint 17.3. That's what we're doing. So that's exactly what we've done. You can choose this color down here. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. That's fine. And then you could jump over to the advanced settings, and you could mix and match and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But I'm not going to do that today. Also, you can add, remove pieces, all kinds of stuff. We're not doing that right now. Have fun with that, though. It is fun. All right, so we did that. And then the next thing that we want to do is applets on our panel. And what we want to do is... we're going to get rid of the grouped panel list. All right, you notice that went away down there, and that's exactly what we're working with. And now what we want to do is go down here at the bottom, and we just want to do window list. So we'll add that. And you notice it picks up, it puts itself over here on this side of the panel. We're going to fix that in a minute. We're going to put it where it belongs. All right. And if you wanted a workspace switcher, you could put it on there. I just use a keyboard shortcut. I just use the keyboard shortcuts for that. So that's all we really need to do right now. Now you could get deeper into this and do more, but that's what we're going to do for the moment. Hey, wait a minute. Where'd my thing go? It disappeared. Did you notice that? I want it back. Oh! It's still there. I closed the application. We need to have something up and running so we can see that. Okay. It's an application switcher. You idiot. Here we go. Yeah, I really did that. And it's in a video for all the world to see. Okay, we want to put this panel into edit mode. We are now in edit mode. So what we can do now is just drag this over here, which is where we want it. Right? I want it right there. All right. Okay, good. Now, take this out of edit mode, because that's all I wanted to do. And we'll go back and we're going to tweak some other settings in the panel in just a moment. Let's right-click on the menu. This is way down in the corner. I know it's probably hard for some of you to see, but we're here. And what I want to do is put text in here. You can do whatever kind of text that you want. I don't care. Anything is okay. I just put in menu because that's the way it used to be done. But you could put your name in there. You could put your computer's name, whatever you wanted. It's very cool that way. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn that on. Use a custom icon is on. We put some text in there. Yes. Icon size 32. I'm going to make that a little bigger. I'm going to make it 40. It's going to make sense here in a minute. It doesn't make sense right now at the moment. All right. Go down here and we got Super L. That's fine. We're going to leave those the way they are. That is perfectly all right. Open the menu. When you put a mouse over it, no, I don't like that. That would get annoying. Then other things you can change about the menu, but I find that to be okay. All right, so we can go ahead and get out of that. That's changed enough for now. Oh, there is one thing that I did want to do. Let's see. Let me go in here and configure once again. Let's see what I got here. Nope, that's cool. We're good. I don't need to do any more. Thought I did, but I don't. So just go ahead and close this up. All right, let's go down here to the panel itself. Panel settings. And I want to intelligently hide the panel. And the show delay should be 250 milliseconds. This is the same settings I've been using for years and years and years with Cinnamon. Okay, 500. 40 is the size. Maybe we will make that icon a little smaller. I thought I was going to make the menu bigger. Let's go down here and do this. Yes, let's do this real quick. No, it's not what I wanted. Go away. To go here. Go to configure. And let's take that down to, we'll put everything else at 32, so we're going to put this at 32 as well. There we go. That's fine. Yeah, I like that. That's better. Doesn't look crowded. All right, we can come over here to the right side of the menu, and we can play around with this. I want things to be 32. Let's see what else I got here. Icon size, let's do 32. And let's see. All right, we did that. Okay, center. You can leave that at 28, that's fine. There we go. Scale, yep, that's all set up. That should be where we want it. Let's see. Another thing that we can do here is kind of pin some applications. So if you want to do that, we go to, let's say we wanted to pin Firefox down here. So I'm going to go down here and look for Firefox. Right, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to pin that to the panel. Add to panel. And it went all the way over here, which is where we don't want it. So let's just come back over here and we'll put that right here. Oh, that's right, I got to go into edit mode. There's also a pin here for a couple of other things. Let's move this stuff over, huh? Let's take this and put it right there, which is where we want it. Perfect. I get people who ask me, I'm going through all of this in such detail because people ask me, how do I do this? How do you make it look the way you want it to look? So one more thing that we could do is customize the terminal. And we can do that real quick here. I can show you how that works. I'm going to have to go to my host and look at what I used for color real quick here, but we'll be able to do it. So let's go to Preferences. And what we're going to do is we want to create a new profile. And we're going to call it Joe. We will create that profile. And now the next thing that we need to do is make this profile default. Okay, let me see. I can't remember how to do this. Go to Profile. I think I right-click, right? Here we go. It's right there. We want to make that set as default. Okay, so we switch to that profile. Now when we make changes, we have the original if we want to just leave it the way it was. So as far as text is concerned, we're going to leave that the way it is. We could customize that if we wanted to, but I'm going to use System because that's working well. And we got blinking text, cursor shape, default, that's fine. You can have a terminal bell if you want to. I'm not a big fan of that, folks. Let's do global. And we're going to do, let's do our colors. What I do here is I start out with, let's see, which one is it that I use? I usually use black on white, right? And then we're going to change that background color. No. I don't use black on white. I use white on black. Duh. White on black. There we go. Now we're going to change this background color. We're going to put it in manually. So what I'm going to do is just jump over here to the host real quick. And I'm going to open up my terminal so I can go in here and look and see what I have this set at. Because it's a number. So we're going to go to Preferences. We're going to go and look at Colors. And we're going to see what this background is. And it is set to 111 C34 because that color is the same color that's used in the Cobalt theme. Oop, I just screwed myself up. I just lost my color. How'd I do that? Wah. No, I'm all right. Preferences. Colors. There we go. That's what I did. Okay, so you guys remember that. 111, number 111 C34 is what we want. So we type in a custom color here. And we select. And I'm going to go to scrolling. I don't want to show a scroll bar because I don't need it. You could limit the scroll back to 10,000 lines if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that. I don't have any reason to do that. And the other thing we don't need here is a menu bar. So let's see. Profiles, Preferences, don't show the menu bar. Thank you. We're done. Wait a minute. I'm still getting scroll over there. Let me see. Does that go away when I do this? Yes. But my menu bar came back. Go away! Let's try that one more time. Okay. Hold on. Let's go ahead and close that. Control T. Oh, you know what's going on here? That's interesting. Is it not? Is it going to just turn it back on every time? I've never seen that before. That's interesting. Okay. Go to Preferences and Profiles. All right. Good enough. So that is pretty well configured right there. We have taken Linux Mint Debian Edition from just being a little thing running into a virtual machine to something that looks like it's going to be quite useful. Super stable. That's what you're going to get with Linux Mint for sure. Let's see, is there anything else that we could do before we left, now that we have our terminal and everything the way we want it? And it's why is it putting the menu bar back on? Why? It's not remembering when I tell it I don't want it. Let's try this. Let's log out and log in, see if that fixes it. Sometimes you need to log out for settings to take effect. We'll see if that's the deal here. Okay, back in we go. This is maddening. Wonder why it's doing that. Let's see if that does that in the host here, because we're running the same thing. This is the same. Let's see. No, show menu bar is off. If I turn it back on, it comes on, right? Okay, let's close that. And then we're going to alternate control and T to bring the terminal back. Now, it won't remember that setting wherever it is. That's a bug, ladies and gentlemen. We just found ourselves a bug. So it looks like in my machine here, that is a bug with terminal. Or it could be because, no, this is a, let's do this again. I'll be dipped. We just found ourselves a bug. Anyway, there was one more thing I wanted to show you before I wrap up the video, just because I've had people ask about this in the past. Debian used to have a bug in it where that if you would create your own bin directory, it would not automatically see that and add it to your executable path. So you'd have to go in and edit that and do it manually. Well, let's see if Linux Mint has fixed that problem for us in their Debian edition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a very old piece of software that I absolutely love called SFTP, Secure File Transfer Protocol. This works with SSH, and I'm going to use it to log into the main machine here. And I'm going to grab a bunch of scripts. So I'm communicating with the host machine through SSH. I don't use drag and drop or shared folders or any of that stuff in VirtualBox because it tends to be a little wonky, but this always works, and of course it'll work with any Linux machine anywhere. So yes, I'd like to add that, and the password for the main machine that I'm trying to log into is this. So now I can grab files that I need for this machine from the main machine, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get, I think one of the files I'm going to get is face. That way I don't have to do that picture manually. Okay, that's done. And I'd like to get the setup for my mail. I use Thunderbird. So we're going to get, and we have to tell it get -R, so it's recursive. And then we're going to grab we're grabbing the entire directory of settings for Thunderbird on the host machine, and that's coming through the network, and boom, it's on the machine, and it's okay, done. And then want to grab the bin directory on the host machine as well. So let's go to bin, and we do the same command basically. So we'll go here, and then we're just going to do bin, bin. Now when you have a bin directory, this means that any program that you compile yourself or any script that you write automatically becomes part of your Linux experience. But it is not available to other users. All right? So these are all scripts that I use pretty much on a daily basis in here, and we've brought them into the system. Now, when you're done with SFTP and you want to sever your connection to whatever server you're logged into, you can either type exit or BYE, bye, and you're done. Isn't that cool? So what we're going to do now is we're going to log out and log in once again to make sure that the system sees that that bin directory is there. We don't need to reboot entirely. Just log out and log back in, and it will execute the profile and bash RC files in which that is contained. Now I should be able to open a terminal. You noticed it didn't remember that I didn't want the menu bar. That's okay. I can live with that. It's a tiny itty bitty bug. No big deal. Just live with a menu bar, you know. Okay, so let us see if we can use a script that's in that bin directory now. So we're going to do, let's do SSHN, which is a shortcut that I use on my network, and we want to get into machine 11. Yes, they are there. And I am now logged into that machine. So, no big deal at all. I can get out of this machine now. I have other scripts in here that are quite useful. Things that I use on a pretty much that's what I'm worried about is that. And the other one, of course, is good old up. You remember up, boys and girls? It is a Debian / Ubuntu, anything based on Debian Ubuntu update tool that does it from a terminal and does all kinds of stuff. So there you go. That's it. I think we have mission accomplished. Success. We have done it. We made it happen. Isn't that awesome? Thank you to the Linux Mint team for creating such a wonderful distribution of Linux. Thank you to Debian for all the work they do and creating such a great distribution of Linux. They have come together to make a super stable Debian experience with the Linux Mint flavor on top of it. Super easy to use. If you know how to use Linux Mint with Ubuntu, you should be all right. You do need to beware, though, that in Linux Mint Debian Edition, there are certain tools that are not there, like a driver manager, okay? We don't have that in Linux Mint Debian Edition, so you have to do those sorts of things from the terminal because it's based on Debian, not Ubuntu. Other than that, if you're comfortable with that idea and looking things up, if you should need to learn how to do something that's different in Debian than Ubuntu, rock and roll. You know what I mean? It's no big deal. So let's go ahead and we'll make that regular size window here. And of course it will resize automatically. It should at least. Let's see if we go here. Make it so I can resize the window. There we go. See, it's there it goes. It fixes the resolution according to the size of the window. So let's see how good we did before we wrap up the vid. Let's see. I'm going to launch my regular Linux Mint, and we're going to see how that compares looks-wise to the Debian edition. Like that. Yeah, this is a little big. Let's make that one smaller too, can we? Okay, so this is Linux Mint Debian Edition. This is Linux Mint Debian Edition running back here. And here is our Linux Mint based on Ubuntu. This is 21.2 that we're running. So we have pretty much, yeah, nailed it. Looks exactly the same, so that's very cool indeed. And of course, for reference, we have Ubuntu. Let's go ahead and launch that as well, just for the fun of it. A couple of things I want to tell you guys before I wrap up this video, and this is for long-time viewers. First of all, thank you for hanging around to this point. I appreciate it. It means that you are a dedicated viewer, and you are completely and totally awesome and wonderful. Talking about scripts and wallpapers and things like that, the Easy Linux website is still up and running. However, it has gone into an archive mode. So you can go grab links to GitHub to get the scripts off of there. If there's anything that you see one of those old videos, or it's still going to be there for a while. However, I am planning at this point to probably not keep the website after April of next year, because that's when the lease is up on the domain, and I am going to probably just let that expire, or I may keep the domain but the website will go away. I'm not really sure exactly how I'm going to handle this at this point. In case you're wondering what you're seeing, that's me resizing this. I'm trying to get all these windows about the right size. While we're here, let's run updates on Ubuntu. Why not, right? We'll use that up script. And so if you check the web page to see if these videos are here and that sort of stuff, just keep in mind that that's going to be going away. There's just not any interest in it at all anymore as far as traffic to the web page. And when I built that web page, it was originally when I was doing Easy Linux, thinking of it as a service where I was helping people install Linux on their machines. And if you will recall, that's how that all started out. I need to do a video and explain all that at some point. Now I don't know what Linux Mint I'm looking at. Oh, that's LMDE running. We want the other one because I want to run updates on it. And so anyway, it's just getting to a place where it's kind of a security risk just to leave it up and running all the time, and it's not really serving much of a purpose. Oh, transparent backgrounds. You don't get that in Debian on your terminal. I should have mentioned that in the video. But that is a kind of a hack that Ubuntu does to GNOME terminal to give you that transparent background. You don't get it in Debian. So anyhow, go ahead and do up. What was I talking about? Oh, I was talking about the web page. So yes, that is the plan. That's going to go away. I'm going to keep GitHub up, of course. All the scripts are there, so you might want to go. If that's something you're interested in, you can follow me at GitHub, although I honestly do not do a lot of contributions anymore to the scripts at GitHub. I don't really mess with it too much, and the reason why is because I've just kind of got things to a place where it just works, and I've written all the scripts I need to make my life easy, and I haven't come up with anything new. If I do, I'll put it on GitHub. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, you can follow me there. So let's go ahead and power off our virtual machines. We don't need to leave them up and running. They're up to date. And we have our new virtual machine to play with, which is Linux Mint Debian Edition, with the bug where it won't remember that I don't want to show the menu bar. It's all right. And just shut that thing right down, and we're done. Thank you for watching. I certainly do appreciate it. I do not know when the next video is going to be or what it may be about, but until then, be good. Talk to you later.